So looking at how we can involve our family and our children in our Christmas traditions. Well, I'm going to share with you some ideas that I have found useful for me. Firstly, I have been lucky enough to have young children so that almost I can instill the traditions that I want at an early age, so they don't really know any different. So if you have young children, I think it's definitely a really good consideration is almost get your traditions up and running now before your children know any different, but also before almost your family, extended family, loving grandparents that like to do things their way, you can instill them now early on. Another thing to consider is talking to our children about what the problems are, why we don't agree with some of the traditions of Christmas or the behaviours, social norms of Christmas. Talk to them about that and see if they can come up with their own suggestions, because like I always talk about, there is no right or wrong. And if we take Christmas cards as an example, because this is an area that I'm passionate about, you will see in the workshop, I don't say don't do any cards ever. What I do is I give you ideas and suggestions. And that's because it's up to you. You might really love cards and it might be something that's really important to you. So I'm not going to say don't do them, but it's worth thinking about options. So when you talk to children about what the problem is of like, oh my goodness, if you and your friends send a card to everyone in your class, it's 900 cards and 900 envelopes. That's a lot of trees chopped down. What could we do instead? And talk to them about the options. Involve them in the decision makings as much as you can. They're much more likely to be willing and motivated to participate in your new traditions if they're part of that process. So do think about that and sit down and talk to them about it and say why you don't feel comfortable with certain things. And I guess if you have already got older children and they're used to things being done that way, just the earlier you have these conversations, the better. Otherwise, another year's going to go on and another year. But you know how to balance it off, balance those discussions out with your children. Some children need to be able to understand why you have to change something. And often, like everything, we have to compromise. I don't want to do cards at all if I could, but my daughter might want to. And actually there's a benefit for that because she's practicing her reading and writing. So I will compromise on that and I will probably get our own ones made out of old bits of craft we've got here. So there definitely is a compromise to be had with all things and all your new traditions. The other things are, another thing that's worked well for me is rather than waiting for her friends to give her loads of Christmas cards and then for me to have the discussion, which she's already then emotionally involved. She's already excited because she's got the cards and then I go, yeah, but you're not going to send any. It's too late. That's not fair. She's already involved and she's already excited and she's already kind of fallen into the norm of what is happening. So it's ideal to have these discussions before it happens. So, predict after that October half term in November, the cards will start coming. And sometimes they come at ridiculously early. Oh my goodness. So, have those conversations in November rather than December, and talk to them early before it happens, basically. So those are my top tips. I'd love to hear how you get on. Always do share your feedback on what's worked for you in our Eco Essex Facebook group.